Thank you all for coming. I'd also like to thank Bruno Hajaj, who's the director of Cutlog, for letting us do this. Normally I would talk off the cuff, but you really don't want me to do that because I have a tendency to talk too fast and too long. So since we're here to see John, I'm going to read a couple of notes really quickly just to tell you a little bit about Seymour projects, and that'll keep me brief and on track, and you will be very thankful, trust me. Seymour is an initiative I founded in 2011 in memory of my father. It's based in Paris, France, where I've been living for the past 9 years. Seymour is a very multifaceted project, but it's predominantly intended as a tool to help individuals uncover and express their authentic creative self-expression by encouraging them to balance external technological stimuli with internal exploration. Seymour offers multidisciplinary projects on and off the web that motivate everyone, particularly those who do not think of themselves as creative, to take regular breaks from technology to relax their mind, explore their subconscious, cultivate their imagination, and express their authentic creative self. We're also working on a more succinct mission statement. For more information about Seymour and our various projects, I invite you to visit our website, seymourprojects.com. And we're just getting started, we're brand new, and we're evolving all the time, so please check back regularly. We also have a little booth to the left, right outside, that you can go try surfing your mind if you want afterwards. At Seymour, beyond being devoted to cultivating creativity and imagination and the subconscious, we're dedicated to supporting and encouraging philosophers, pilgrims, and punks. We encourage our community to be brave, to trust their instincts, and to follow their authentic creative voice, wherever it may lead them. I can think of no one who better embodies all that Seymour is trying to uphold than John Lurie. I am deeply thrilled that John, I'm going to cry. I'm deeply thrilled that John has agreed to be with us today to kick off Seymour's Superhero Sessions, a roving discussion series that will feature iconoclasts whose work inspires and reflects our mission. Where to begin an introduction for John Lurie? John is the embodiment of Seymour's creative ideal. Renaissance man, rebel, John is a profound and radiant and authentic talent. He is an actor, musician, director, and producer, an artist in the truest sense of the word. And now he's undertaken painting, which you may not know about, and that's what we're here to discuss today. I imagine that if you're here, you're very familiar with John's work, but in case you're meeting him for the first time today, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about his past. John is the co-founder of the seminal and widely revered jazz punk band, the Lounge Lizards. He's acted in numerous films, including Jim Jarmusch's Stranger Than Paradise and Down by Law. For 5 years, he appeared in the HBO television show Oz. In 1991, he produced, directed, and starred in the television series Fishing with John. John has also composed and performed music for numerous films and television projects. In '96, his soundtrack for the film Get Shorty was nominated for a Grammy Award. In 1999, listeners discovered the posthumous works of the legendary Marvin Pontiac. Pontiac, however, did not exist. His biography, music, and all the lore that surround him were entirely imagined and created by John. In recent years, his creativity has been focused almost exclusively on his painting. John had his first solo gallery exhibition at Anton Kern Gallery in 2004, and has subsequently exhibited at Gallery Daniel Blau in Munich, Gallery Lulon in Zurich, and Gallery Gabriel Rolt in Amsterdam, the Basel International Art Fair at Roebling Hall, and the PS1 Contemporary Art Center in New York, the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, just to name a few. The Museum of Modern Art has also acquired some of his work for their permanent collection. John has also released 2 art books, Learn to Draw, a compilation of black and white drawings, and a fine example of art, which includes over 80 reproductions of his work. Ladies and gentlemen, my hero, John Lurie. So, John, this is one of those mics that you gotta get really close to.
Testing. Testing. All right.
And I'm gonna hold it. So I told everyone we're here to talk about your painting.
Good.
And they saw the beautiful work.
How did it look?
Beautiful.
Come on.
No, I mean, I know that they had some problem with the.
Yeah, the screen is not, John's work is unbelievable, and I didn't want this to be like a shameless promotion, but I have to tell you that I'm clearly a huge fan of John, so anything I say is absurd, but the work is really spectacular. And before we get into the questions, because the screen is a little complicated to show the work, definitely take the time to go to johnlurieart.com and take your time looking at all the work, because it's really unbelievably spectacular, and I really invite you to do that.
Yeah.
So John, let's get into it. You ready?
Mhm.
So you've been creating all your life.
Okay.
You have. I've decided that you've been creating all your life. Tell us a bit about your childhood, and maybe share a memory of one of your earliest forays into creative expression.
Somehow, I don't know the answer to this, but I know that my mother in particular, but both of my parents did something with me and Evan, my brother, and my sister Liz, that allowed us to hold on to that childlike thing, to have confidence in that childlike. You know, when you go to somebody's house and their kid brings home, even if it's a kid you don't like that much, and they show you their drawing from school, it's just like, that's amazing. And almost all kids have it. And my parents somehow entitled us to hold on to that. And I remember like being in the first grade, and I knew it was wrong. I would get down on my knees and crawl so the teacher wouldn't see me, to steal paper and go back to my desk, and she caught me. But I knew it was my right
To do that.
to do that. And that even though she caught me and said, "You're stealing," it's like, yeah, but don't you, couldn't formulate those words at the time. But yeah, but this first grade, this is what I'm supposed, I mean, but my mother somehow entitled me to do that, and I held on to that, you know, somehow.
She made you respect your creative impulse rather than quelching it.
I don't even know, because I don't remember, I wasn't old enough
But
to
your mom
remember.
was a teacher, right?
She was an artist, and then she taught in Liverpool at the art school where the Beatles went, but not at the same time.
When you look back on the evolution of your paintings from this early period, they remain quite naive in a certain way. So you have retained that, but they also have a much greater depth to them. And I just wonder, when you look back on the evolution of your paintings, what do you see, how they've evolved over the years?
I mean, hopefully there's a logical evolution from when I was 2 to 6. You know, and then I was mostly doing music in the 80s and 90s, and I was painting, and they were kind of fun. And then I got sick. I got Lyme disease, and I was stuck in my house, and I couldn't play music anymore. And I was painting kind of for me, and they weren't, you know, I would make them funny, but I was just doing it for me, you know, I'd make them funny. And then it got more and more and more, and then finally, and I never thought this would happen, but it became what music was. I mean, it really became what music was for me, so I never thought that would happen.
You mentioned once that when you're painting, your symptoms subside. And I wondered if you could talk about how...
But I don't understand how that works exactly. And then eventually, you know, I'll feel it start to happen, so you're in trouble now. But when you concentrate on anything, you know, you got the flu, and let's say you've got the flu, and you've got to do this. For the half hour you're out here, you don't remember that you got the flu, you know? I saw that Johnny Cash talk about, he had this thing with his jaw, he had shy dragers. I remember talking to him on Alan King about, he was in terrible pain, and then he would walk out on stage and it would be gone. And I know, you know, I had a big knee operation, I went on tour. And so the painting kind of, you know, you're in the house and you're doing this thing, and it would stop for a while. But you can't hold it back forever, and if you go on for too long, you know you're gonna be, in seizure mode. But you know, I don't know.
Well,
I can't really explain it, but.
This question's kind of linked to that. You were talking about, you know, how you were feeling with the painting, like you felt in the music. You said that one of the most incredible experiences you had was with the band, when you would feel like you were like hovering off the ground when everybody was just in the zone. And you may not feel it, but when I look at your paintings, I really get the same feeling that I get when I listen to you playing saxophone, because I see your insides radiating out onto the page in that same sort of vibrant expression of creativity. And I wondered, what, other than the symptoms subsiding, what do you feel and experience while you're painting? Anything?
Man, no. I mean, it's what happens is when the music was great and when the painting's going great, John's not there anymore. You know, it just goes through you. Is this going to be a good shot? Is this going to be worth this?
Is it worth the crouch? Like,
and you know, it's almost like it's something's coming through you, and your job is just to not wreck it. You know, because there'll be always that thing, that inspired moment where, and you don't remember even doing it. We used to have these concerts, you know, do these concerts. And I'd get off the stage and I'd be like, to the bass player, say, "That's a B flat at the beginning. Like, you can't move too fast there." And I would just hear the mistakes.
Right.
And then I'd hear the tape later. I said, "Well, no, this isn't bad. This is great." But during the great parts, I wasn't there.
Wow.
You know, I don't know what you call that, but yeah.
No,
Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, and I do know. I mean, I think it's that flow, actually, and it sort of leads into the next question, which you've said that you've had trouble when people ask you what are your influences. You said, I don't know what my influences are, and I think it's because you really create from within by tapping into that subconscious and letting it flow out.
Yes.
And I think it was Glenn O'Brien, I might be wrong, who called you a modern day shaman, and I totally agree with that. I know that's a loaded word, but like you're saying, I feel like you're a conduit, and I don't want to say for something greater because we then get into what my friend Catherine calls the woo-woo, and we don't want to get too into the woo-woo, but I feel like you're one of those artists where, like you said, John's not there in the moment, and is it something coming through you? Are you tapping into something, whether it's the music, the painting, you're straddling
You know,
the known, the unknown?
if you talk about God, people go, whoa.
Yeah.
If you talk about, but I think there's something going on. I think there's things we don't understand that are happening, and you can tap into them from time to time. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And you just try to bring the good spirits instead of the bad ones.
I mean, I completely agree with that, and that's the cornerstone of Seymour's philosophy, in a sense, is that you set up the conditions
Yeah.
to open yourself up to the muse or the inspiration or whatever.
But you realize that every culture that actually has believed that, like Native Americans, like Tibetans, like African, they're all been annihilated.
And artists have a tough rap too, so But do you think it's just because it's scary and people are afraid of the unknown? And they like control, and so, and we're also, I mean, not to get too much into this, but if we're in an ego-based and ego-driven society, if you're saying John's not there and people are trying to make a name for themselves, it's pretty scary. So I think just because something is scary doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it, do you know what I mean? And risk annihilation. But no, I think it's just, it's interesting, this flow.
What's the question?
There wasn't one there. We knew this was going to happen.
I agree with you.
Thank you for agreeing with me, John, and not humiliating me. Let's see, I have another question, but it's a little on the same tip, and I don't want you to think I'm pushing you onto this nutty tip, but I'm going to ask you.
No, I know, I really agree with what you're saying. It's just such a hard thing to talk about.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. But let's go there anyway, because I got that story. I want you to tell the Paul Clay story, so I'll set it up. At Seymour, again, now bear with me, we think that the positive potential of psychedelic substances has not yet been harnessed. This doesn't mean that we're telling everybody to go run around and drop acid, but I'm not speaking for John, I'm speaking for myself right now. I think that there is something to it, and I think it's very mind expanding, and I think that if it is done in an environment that is safe.
I'm sorry, are you promoting drugs?
I am promoting drugs.
And I'm sitting here going,
I'm sorry, John.
just say no.
Just pretend John's not here. But I am promoting drugs in very safe use. Now, I think if they're interested for both creativity and human consciousness, and I just had to get that in there because I think that it is something that people are afraid of, and I think that it needs to be discussed. But this, I'm teeing up the Paul Clay story for you. Give me a break. All right, so tell us the story, John, about your experience with mushrooms.
I've had enormous artistic breakthroughs with drugs, you know. I've also abused them and destroyed, and my liver is now the shape of Italy, for example. But I have two Paul Clay stories. One, when I was 9, it was my mother's birthday coming up. And I had to get her something, and so I went in with my $5, and I bought her this print. And I brought it home, she opened it, oh, that's Paul Klee, you have very good taste. So that was already this connection. Then, what year? Steve Piccolo used to be in the band, was going to Bard College, and we went to visit him. And me and Evan and Billy Claster, and so we took magic mushrooms. But in Steve's room was this Paul Klee painting, and I couldn't really, and we took the magic mushrooms and we went out and looked at, it was the apple season, and we just stood in the fields going, red, juicy red apples, you know, and we were tripping our brains out. And then Evan stepped on a nail, and it was like, oh, does he have to go to the hospital? And we went back to the room, and then I could see the painting. While I was tripping, I could see the painting where I hadn't been able to see it before.
Which
I found very interesting.
But that's also something about being 17 or 18 or 19. It was just like, if I were to see the painting now, I would have seen it had I never taken acid. But,
okay, it was an age thing.
Or mushrooms, it was mushrooms.
All right, I'm done promoting drugs. Let's go back to talking about your work
Okay.
a little bit in more depth. I think that because some people are discovering your painting for the first time, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your process. Like a typical day. I know you're not crazy about talking about that, but it's interesting.
No, but I don't have a process. I wait until I'm compelled to do it. I don't get up at 8 and say, okay, I'm going to paint from 9 to 5. I don't. I've done that once when me and Nesrin were in Turkey. But I wait until I usually become compelled by some series of colors that occurs to me in my head. And I get up and I make a mess, basically, and then I see what I have. And then if that thing doesn't drag me along to do it, I don't, you know, sometimes I'll be painting a brick wall, so I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do, you know, and I've got to have the discipline, and I've got to not wreck it. But in general, that thing that brings me to it, you just kind of wait, you know, it's just like waiting till you're hungry to eat. It's like, I wait. Because you can ruin them also with the Lyme disease. If my symptoms are bad and I haven't worked in a few days, and I've got these 3 paintings lying around, and I start working on it, and you know, because it screws up my motor control and my vision, I have to stay away from it, so I have to start a new one. So I've got several lying around at the same time, but I don't have a process.
Do you paint every day?
No, almost. And sometimes I'll go months without, but I probably paint. You know, I'll paint for at least 10 minutes every day. You know what I mean? But I won't paint for hours every day. And there'll be, you know, I've got a bunch lying around. It's like, oh, I see what goes on that, and then I'll pick that one out, and you know, like that.
And do you think of your audience when you're painting, or do you paint for yourself?
No. If I did, I'd probably have more of a career. But no.
Because I know that I don't want to talk about Facebook too much, but the reason I asked that question...
This is the first time you've mentioned it.
I know. I'm just not a huge fan. Hold on, I need to...
I'm a fan of Facebooks.
You are?
Well, it's easy to put Facebook down, but this is so cool. I can put the paintings on there and people see them. You know, there's a lot of stupid comments often, but no, I like it. It's like,
okay, well,
think about it.
Well, this is what I'm going to tell, so why I'm bringing it up. Because I was going to say that you say you don't paint for an audience, but I've watched the reaction that people have to your paintings on Facebook, and it's really moving and extraordinary. Because,
sometimes, yeah. And you know what else is really cool? Is that somebody will see a painting and they'll say, I have to have that. Mm-hmm. And somebody like with a job will save up, will save up. Like, actual money. And come and buy it. And they look at it like, and it's not some rich guy who's gonna put it in his basement. Right. It's like, she had to have it. Right. And she, I know. That just, I mean, that just feels so good, It's, for those of you that aren't on John Lurie's art page on Facebook, you should go, because although I really want to advertise is my Twitter account.
Forget what I said. It's all about Twitter.
You can go to Facebook or John Lurie Art on Facebook, or we have our own website. But for a long time, Nesrin wouldn't let me have a Twitter account.
This is Nesrin, John's assistant and co-pilot in every season.
But I've had a Twitter account for about 2 months, and I don't know if you know about my debacle with the New Yorker magazine, but I'm trying to get 1 million followers on Twitter. And once I have 1 million followers, I've been entering the New Yorker caption contest every week. And if I get 1 million followers on Twitter, I will put them all out.
Awesome.
Please help me.
So
Just
help
a little bit
him get 1
more.
million followers on
It's
Instagram.
really important to me.
Great.
But what I did want to say about the paintings on Facebook is that I subscribe to a number of artist feeds, and I find that there's a distance between other artists and their public in some cases. So someone will put up an image and it feels very promotional and people will give it like a thumbs up, but it's usually in tandem with a show that's coming up and they're like hawking something and people like the work and they follow it in a sort of distanced way. John's community, and I think that it's because of how incredible the work is incredibly emotional and interactive with his paintings. And
But
so,
you know that most of those people are insane.
right, well, or not.
I mean,
He's
actually,
being
this-
self-deprecating.
No,
It's not
this
true.
isn't actually self-deprecating, but it strikes a nerve with,
With the crazy.
well, they're not really crazy. They're people who are kind of talking about what you're talking about before. They're in touch with something deeper, and they can't handle this society, and they're off to the side, and you don't kind of see it right away. But then there must be some astrological thing because suddenly they'll all write me on the same day, like these 40 paragraph, like
Yeah, I see it.
like 20 of them,
Yeah.
and then it's like whoa.
But it's not crazy rant. Like, you know, we've all seen that too. Like, we've seen something goes up and then it's like some, you know, it's not crazy rant. It's really, they strike a chord. They bring joy to people and they love it. And people are very enthusiastic. And I found that very moving. Like, and
That
that's
doesn't
kind of,
happen other?
no. People will, I mean, I don't know what you all think that follow art. I mean, I'm not saying all other artists, John is the only artist, that's not true.
No, you can say that.
Yeah, John is the only artist. Drugs are good and John is the only artist. That's the takeaway.
That's all you really need to learn today. Thanks for stopping.
No, I find that the paintings, if we're talking about the work, I find that the paintings really open a dialogue with the viewer. I feel like they bring a lot of joy. I feel people are very passionate about them. Also, for those of you that don't know, and I don't know if this was visible because I was half watching in the video, but John has very unique titles for his paintings, and they're a big part of the work themselves, and they're very funny because obviously John is very witty and intelligent, and so the paintings are like that as well. Am I overdoing it?
No, I was back there and I couldn't really hear you. I know you were complimenting me at the beginning, but I couldn't really hear
Want some
you.
more? All right.
I was just like, you know when somebody compliments you and you pretend you didn't hear it so they have to do it again?
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
You're great, John. No, I'm kidding. No, but seriously, so let's talk a little bit about those titles. Where do they come from? Tell us one, so that for people that don't know.
The first one, okay, on that video, was the whole video there? Sorry, Ms.
Yes,
Well,
that's our fault. Sorry.
There's one, the invention of animals. Wow, where does it come? I don't know. I don't understand that. I'm doing the painting. I start with a message. I see that. I make it a little bit. Okay, that goes that way. Okay, then about 3/4 of the way through, I come up with something like a title. If I come up with a title first, it always comes out contrived. They're never good. Maybe I'll get to be a good enough painter one day that I can go for. But I have to go that thing. I see what I get. I see what I'm given, and then the title comes. But think of a title. Some of them are obvious, and some of them, you know, when the painting wasn't that good, the title saved them. But I hope the titles are actually less and less important.
I've been following it for a while, and I think
Yeah.
it is less and less important.
But also, if I post one on Facebook and then you post this painting and then people are all commenting on the title, but that always kind of bothers me.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know? Because
Yeah.
the title's usually the joke that kind of gives it the closing thing, but the painting is the painting. I mean, the painting is what it's really about. And then they'll comment on the title, you know, and that's...
Yeah, but you're funny, so the title is funny, and that gets people in, and
Yeah.
then, you know, but I think people do react to paintings. Paintings are extraordinary.
But they never say that, they only comment on the title. And it's also...
You know what that is, John? That's like you hearing the B flat, just or the thing that's flat.
I
It's
guess,
like
you
that's
know,
all you're
and-
hearing, because all the other stuff people say a lot of
And
crazy.
you know, I could get 11 great reviews and the one I'll remember and say, oh, he said, you know, I'll remember the bad one. It's just like...
Of course.
Is
So
everyone like that?
yes,
Everyone's like that? Why are we like that?
it's not just
'Cause-
bad reviews; it's any criticism. I think.
Because I think, yeah?
Because if it's good, you don't have to do anything about it.
No, but I like good criticism. I love good criticism. That's on the money, that doesn't come from the psychological problems of the person giving it. I love good criticism. I really do. And I just, I love it. I don't know. But it's not that it's criticism.
There was one painting of a man on a donkey or a horse.
The donkey body.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but it's like, wow.
It's Don Quixote's son, Hansa.
And what was the title?
Hansa, right? Hansa, what's it?
Hansa.
That's, she's my Hansa,
Well, actually, the reason that I mentioned it is because it reminded me of my father, who was born in 1897, and he used to be a shepherd. And I just had that.
Your father was a shepherd? And how did you get to here?
Well, he was born in California.
Yeah.
He was born in Texas, but in a little town.
Oh, really?
He used to go up in the mountains and
It reminded you of him?
it did.
See, when I see that one, I see that the horse head is a little bit off. I can't help it.
It really was very emotional.
Oh, that's nice. I did like 3 or 4 Don Quixote paintings. They came out pretty good.
I'm going to ask John a few more questions, and then we will open it up to Q&A, so everybody can talk to John if he wants. He's kindly allowed us to do that. We wanted to talk a little bit about the Lower East Side, because here we are, right? And Bruno has done what's arguably the first Lower East Side art fair.
Is it really?
We're calling it that. We got big cojones, and we're saying it's the first Lower East Side art fair, right? We're calling it that, right, Bruno? Yeah.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. Okay. So, though I live in Paris, I grew up in New York City. And every time I come home, I'm astounded by the changes the city has undergone. You were an integral part of this neighborhood's cultural scene in the 70s and 80s. What are your thoughts on its evolution, the changes to the creative community here? What do you miss most? Favorite places, funny stories, great
Where are we,
moments?
Suffolk Street?
Yep.
We used to buy dope on this block. And there was one thing that really was amazing. It was just something. The dope dealers were, and they had moved the police had come. And the dope dealers moved up to the top of the street. And the police were at the bottom. And they wouldn't, it was a standoff.
Yeah.
And we're all just waiting to get high, but this isn't what you wanted to talk about. But I miss that thing, not the drugs. Drugs, there's something good about drugs. It fucked up most of the people's lives that I know. So I'm not, but.
And what about, instead of
But the
Yeah.
danger, that you had to be tough to be here.
Yeah.
I miss that. That you had to be tough.
I miss the grit.
Yeah, I mean, now it's just like, everybody, I liked it when it was tough, and I think it makes a big difference.
And what was the creative community like? Like, how did that inspire you?
Well, there were so many people who came here, who gravitated here, the crazy kid from Milwaukee, and the only place to go was here. That also sort of changed. It was cheaper to be here, but you would go. It was amazing then. I wish there was more discipline, because there would have been more great work that had come out of all that. But there was some amazing people, and they're mostly gone. I mean, everybody,
Do you have one memory or something that had a huge impact on you creatively? Just so necessary we don't talk about drugs the whole time. Was there like was there a hero of yours? Like, you're my hero. Who was your hero during that time?
there was a bunch. It was all of them. I mean, it was Boris Police Band and what James Chance was doing then, and Eric Mitchell and Ardo Lindsay, and I mean, I just walked into that world. They were already kind of there. I'd been living in London, and I was like a jazz musician. That's what I was interested in. But jazz was just kind of not going anywhere. You just started meeting these irreverent, really smart, energetic people, and through them you meet people like Jack Smith and Vito Acconci and just, amazing people. But the older ones kind of, like Jack Smith and people, but the younger ones, but people didn't survive,
Right.
There was too much drugs, there was too much falling out of windows, there was AIDS,
Right.
so not that many people made it through. And even at the time, people weren't disciplined, it was more about having fun, and then you did your work kind of as a hobby,
That's interesting. I feel like that's changed a lot, particularly related to art. I feel like art is being taken, it's more job-like. So whereas the art used to come out of a personal expression and living. Now I feel like people come and sit down and do art like they're doing their homework sometimes. And I feel like we've lost a little bit of that just flow.
I feel like that too, and I also feel like I don't know how to really. Jerry Saltz was posting a bunch of stuff from the Freeze thing. And he's a sweet guy, and I believe he likes everything, you know. So it's like, yeah. But I'm looking at this stuff, and I think that art has to move people. I think people are having a very hard time. You know, people are suffering, people are poor, people, you know. And so the art has to really bring something to people, and you can't just be making things that are ironic. Because that just makes it this elitist little club. And they, almost like that politician thing where, you know, people outside of his house are starving to death, but he's not aware of it. Almost the art world seems to have gone, oh, this ironic thing, and I can afford it and you can't. And that really bothers me. But that wasn't the question, was it?
But that's fine, because that's an interesting response.
Yeah, but that's like, you know, that's going to even further screw up any chance I had of having a career like
No,
that.
stop it. Tell me, do you have any words of advice for those embarking on a creative journey?
Yes, if the New Yorker magazine ever calls, you just hang up the fucking phone. No, be real, and be real. Doesn't matter. You are a real creative, just be real. If you're playing music, you're painting, just do what you know is real, not what you think your neighbor's gonna like or what. Just be real. Do it. Find it in you. That's my advice. But look at me. I'm a mess.
No.
But don't listen to me.
When we were talking about doing this together, you said to me, if we pull it off and we actually, because I was in Paris, he was in New York, we're talking yesterday, we're doing email, he said, if we're sitting together, remind me I have a good story about Harrison Ford.
Oh, really? But that has nothing to do with that. I will tell you the Harrison Ford story. 2 days before 9/11, I was at Lucky Strike on Friday night, and I knew the bartender, this woman I knew was, and I go to and I'm talking to her, and this guy bumps into me really, really hard, and like hard enough where it's like, I'm gonna fight you, motherfucker. And I turn around and I see it's Harrison Ford, and I have a couple of friends. And Willem had just done a movie with him and somebody else, a friend of mine, and I could see he was drunk, and I was gonna say, oh, I know, and then I said, okay, I won't play that on the fellow celebrity thing. I'll just leave the man alone. 2 days later is the World Trade Center, and I had had a flood in my apartment, so I was staying at the Thompson Street Hotel. And the only place to open to eat downtown was at this pizza place that was outside, and I'm sitting there, and my foot's kind of dangling out into the sidewalk. And this guy walks by and steps on my foot, and I look up, and it's Harrison Ford. And then everything's closed downtown, so I'm at Da Silvano. And you know, the fire engines are coming out and people are applauding and the air is filled with that weird smelling smoke and it's just, you know. And I go to leave Da Silvano and this guy bumps into me. And it's Harrison. And I guess he'd just broken up with his wife. He was really out of it. And so I let it go. The next day, I'm at this 17 restaurant on 17th Street, and there's no salt on my table, and I turn around and I bump into Harrison. This is four out of 5 days now. This is like, if it had been a woman, I would have married her on the spot. This has to mean something. But, okay. But so, when we're outside the salon, I said, you know, I've run into you 4 times in the last 5 days, and he kind of looks at me like I'm some insane fan, so I leave him alone. So I'm sick of the Thompson Street Hotel and the insurance company's paying for it, so I'm gonna move over to the Mercer. And I'm with this woman who's, and we're, you know, and it's all dark. And you can't see, and waiting forever for the elevator. And finally the elevator door opens. And I don't see that there's anybody inside because it's so dark, and I pick up my bags going, and I bump into Harrison Ford. And I throw down the suitcase and I go, that's it! The woman I'm with looks at me like, John Lurie. And he looks at me like, I run into you 5 out of the last 6 days. And he said, I think we've been through this before. But there's no punchline to the story. I don't know why I told you.
We loved it.
But I never saw him again, actually. That's it. We're going to end on that weird story.
All right, I want to ask Nestor, do you have a question that you'd like me to ask John that I haven't asked? Is there anything? Okay, so are you cool for open up to Q&A a little bit?
If they're nice.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, longtime fan, first time audience member. So great story about coincidence and sort of thinking about your subconscious. Wondering if dreams play any factor in your paintings, or if you ever paint that you're dreaming or dream that you're painting, or if there's any kind of...
No, but it's almost like going there. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like accessing the dream part of your brain while you're working. I mean, that really is, it's almost like self-hypnosis or something. But it's not like I have a dream and I have to put that in the painting. It's kind of you try to get there while you're doing it. That's kind of what I try to do.
Are there any other questions? Ward?
Do you paint to music?
No. But I have a whole, I had to stop playing music because I got neurological Lyme disease, and then for a long time I couldn't even listen to music. I mean, it was like, for me, it was like fingernails on a blackboard because I would have like demyelination in my nervous system. But now it's just the loss is so, I don't listen to, the loss, every once in a while I'll listen to something that I know is going to be great, like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan or Fela or Stravinsky, but the loss is, no. It might be something I might try, but I'm also such a snob about music, and I don't want to go and looking for new stuff. So there's something, but I just put on the 8 records that I like and play them over and over again. It would kind of be weird.
What are the 8 records that you like?
Astor Piazzolla, 0 Hour, parts of Electric Ladyland, parts of the Beatles, Fela Kuti, Umu Sangara. There's this thing it's on YouTube, it's called Yala, Y-A-L-A, with these, I forgot the photographs, and the Umu Sangara, and it just moves me every time but the photographs are amazing. Yala, Y-A-L-A. I really suggest you go look. To me it's like, oh, look, there really is life on Earth. It just really moves me.
And you actually had a thing where you were trying to get everybody to get up and dance at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that didn't work at all. I was trying to do this thing. Monday at 5 o'clock, everybody get up and dance for 5 minutes, no matter where you are, what you're doing, and try to start this. And I just really, but it just didn't catch on. And I was just like, I gave up on it, but maybe I'll bring it back.
Does anybody have, okay, back there, I can't see.
I have a practical question. How big are the paintings?
Some are this big, and some are this big, and some are a little bigger. But they're small mostly. If you'd like to set me up in a nice big studio, I could make them bigger.
And actually that begs a question, because we didn't go into too much detail on that kind of stuff, but do you want to talk a little bit about the materials that you paint it with?
It depends on the situation I'm in, and I'm not set up right now to do oils, but I was doing, because I was sick and I was stuck in my house, and I started doing these little watercolors, 10 by 14, and then started working on oils and with Nezra, and then I kind of got driven from New York by this stalker situation. So then it was like, well, we were in Turkey and sending him back, and in Palm Springs and sending him back, and it got too expensive. So now, I'm working pretty small on paper, but
Do you remember, like, when, I know it's Lyme disease that started, but when, there must have been a point, even though you've been painting your whole life, where it really tipped, where, like, this is now your primary form of creative expression, and was there...
but it was, it was slow, I was in Amsterdam when I was painting, and I ran out of a color, and I had to go to the art supply store, and my clothes were covered in paint. And so I got a change, and the woman was like, well, you're a painter, you can go like that. And it was the first time I felt like, yeah, I'm a painter, and I can go like with paint all over me. But before that, I would have felt like it was pretentious of me to go. Jean-Michel used to do this thing that I was so jealous of. And this Jean-Michel Basquiat, I was so jealous of, and because we were close, and then suddenly he was rich, and he was throwing it in my face a little bit. But he used to buy these Comme des Garçons suits, and then he would paint in them. And I was just like, you motherfucker, because it was really, I thought it was great, and I thought it was horrible, but you motherfucker,
Yeah, I know this artist, his name is Tom Sachs, I don't know if you know
I know Tom Sachs, yeah.
Yeah, so Tom showed up at a dinner that I was at with a gold Rolex spray painted black, and it's like the equivalent, I think, of painting in that kind of a suit. He had just tri-lined the gold Rolex.
But that was actually a concert. Jean-Michel would buy this fancy suit, and then I would say, oh, I need to do something on that painting, and then he wouldn't change to do it, and so it, you motherfucker.
You guys were friends though, right? What was that like?
We were friends and then enemies and then friends and then, I mean, I've never been
Like
so...
all best relationships.
I've never been so competitive with anybody in my life. I mean, he was this kid who followed me around. I was his hero. And then suddenly, and I did this to some musicians too, like when I was 17, 18, 19, where I would follow this musician around and then kind of get even with him and then treat them with contempt. You know what I mean? It's like, I was too influenced by you now, and he did that to me, and it hurt. And then suddenly he was rich on top of it, so it's like, whoa, kid. But yeah, no, I loved him.
And back at that time when you were playing with the Lounge Lizards, did you ever explore painting back then? Because everyone around you was painting, right?
Yeah. But then we got to, in the 90s, and they all got to, and I finally sort of stopped. But the paintings didn't really hit that thing until, it was the only thing I was doing. And I never thought that would happen, but it hit that thing in 2006, 2007, where it meant it was coming out of me like the music, which I just never thought would happen, but it really did.
Are there more? Go ahead. Young.
Okay.
Yes.
So you talked about irony before and sort of how that creates kind of elitism. And when I saw your paintings for the first time with PS1,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I really liked about them was that kind of juxtaposition with the titles and the work. But it did make me think about New Yorker cartoons, so it's funny that you...
Well, I was always a fan of the New Yorker cartoons.
Right.
I didn't expect that, I didn't know, I mean, they really fucked me, and it's very painful. And there's not a day that goes by where I don't think about that artwork. It was hideous. But I've always liked those cartoons a great deal.
Yeah, but I guess the question I wonder about is, like, have you tried shutting down the titles so that you're just...
I never start with the titles. It's always at the very end, so I don't really have to, but I mean...
But are there some that aren't titled?
Yeah, I have...
I just don't remember from when I saw the PS1. I mean, I'm just wondering about creative.
Yeah. No, there's been a few, and then there's a few.
Okay.
And then I put one on Facebook and said I don't have a title for this, and you get like, and then there was some good ones. So, but the titles always last. And it's just kind of like maybe I shouldn't make them funny anymore.
No,
Untitled Blue 1.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I want to know, has anybody ever been to Morocco?
Yes.
Okay, when you're driving along the road and there's a guy standing in the field, just standing there, not doing anything, not praying, what are they doing?
They're waiting for Godot.
Waiting your girlfriend.
Waiting for what?
For his girlfriend.
For his, no, this guy, but you see it all the time. You're driving along and you see this guy up in the field just standing there. I really want to know what the fuck this is about.
He's just meditating.
Well, maybe. All right, well, thanks. You haven't been helpful.
It's all coincidence. He's been working really, really hard at the moment that you drive by.
There's something going on there. It's like, it's almost like a
It's
standing stone.
We have any more? No? So I want to do something for John since his 5 p.m. on Monday dancing thing didn't work. We've been sitting here for an hour. Everybody get up and shake your booty for John. Come on, let's go. Yes, let's do it.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.
Another coincidence story without much of a punchline, but we needed the Blu-ray player set up and the microphone set up and the artist in residence in the building who set everything up for you today. His name is Paul Clay.
Get out of here. For
I didn't
real?
think of that yet. He spells it C-L-A-Y, but his name is Paul Clay.
That's just weird.
And we should thank Paul for without Paul Clay, this wouldn't be happening.
Thanks all you guys. Thank you.